So, welcome to the first Unity for Film Summit. It's a very exciting day for me because I've been traveling the world since like 3-4 years, hoping that this day would come one day. So I would just start very quickly with like before I get into features and technical stuff. Very quickly, because it's a historical moment today, I will start very quickly with a small story. So. That's when I started to fall in love with Unity, Unity 4. Who use Unity 4 here? Oh, we have a few people, that's very good. I'm sure there are people who use Unity 3 and 2. 1? 0? No. Okay. So yeah, so I fell in love with this platform because basically, like, you felt like you could do anything you want. And in 2012, 13, about 4 or 5 years ago, my dream came true. I could work with this small startup. As you can see, it's pretty fun to see the images of this time. Even the shirts look different. It looks like ages ago, but it's not so much. And I could work at Unity as a field engineer, so traveling in Europe, like talking with any users of Unity and trying to solve their problem and discuss their needs and so on. And mostly at this time, it was mobile apps. A few people doing PC and even fewer doing console stuff. But then you had already the feeling that people, like, this was a platform you could do anything with. I was already meeting people who were doing, like, I don't know, car configurators or ArcVs or art installations and also film. And we actually started to, like, go into film in 2011. That was a project we made with Passion Picture. The butterfly effect. I don't know if who has seen that actually. Okay, very good. So it was our first go at doing film with Unity. It was really interesting because we had to hack so much Unity at the time that we could never release anything around this except the video. So that's where you can do film with Unity and it's still not ready for production. So, but it was hopeful. And then at this time, film was mostly, when I was going to film event, it was mostly about transmedia, which was like, I take an IP and I make a mobile app with that, if we simplify this. And people were looking how to mix the two worlds. And then I met Michael, who made this animated film. So this was the first, why is it not running? Oh. So I met Michael, and Michael was doing this first animated film. I have to shake my mouse, I think, so that works, okay. So he was doing this first animated film in Unity. It was almost 3 years ago. There was no timeline, there was no post-processing. It was the beginning of Unity 5. And he did 13 episodes of 2 minutes almost alone on that. And then I met Neth and the Sonder team, who were also, like, they were coming from different companies, film animation industries, and they had also this passion and dream to make something in real time with a distributed team across the world. Then I met Girish, who was working at Digital Domain and who was working on the Jungle Book previews. And all these people in these different places were sure that the future is actually filmmaking with real time. And then internally we had a demo team where the goal was to prove how good graphics are with Unity. So making a film was actually not like something you want to sell to film people, but just a way to compare yourself in terms of graphics. So they did Blacksmith in 2015 here. And then moreover Adam. And Adam was really when things got to get serious. It was the first time we got so many views on a video, on a demo video, but it was like 10 times more than anything we've published before. And we were surprised, we were like, is it like so good that people love it? But then the thing which was happening is that actually we got people who had nothing to do with technology looking at this movie. And they were like, I love this story, when do we have the next episode, and so on. And people didn't know about Unity, real time, or Unreal. And we knew that this was a moment where things were switching to be like a future reality of filmmaking with real time. engine. So it actually got nominated at film festivals, not at technological demo festivals, but like film festivals. And that was a big change. So in Unite LA, actually 2 years ago, I organized the first film panel. And there was Michael, who made Mr. Carton, Girish, who made the Jungle Book previs, and Ness, who was working on Sonder. And after that, actually, we met people from Disney, who then we started to get to talk together, and which led to actually Baymax Dream, which was released recently. I would just actually go further. We also got in touch after that with Neil Blomkamp and Haute Studio to make Adam episode 2 and 3, which is here. Probably you've seen that. And at the same time, our team was pushing graphics further because we were a bit behind our competition, and HD Render Pipeline got released. We released Book of the Dead. And because I had organized all these things around film, I have to shake my mouse again. No? Okay. I started to travel around the world and went to India and met a little studio with young people who are doing only videos on YouTube. There is 800 million people who have just a mobile phone to watch content. And they were making animated TV series, and they were using like a traditional pipeline. And we discussed at one event, and the next time I came there, 3 months later, they had made this episode entirely in Unity. Maybe I'll show it for a second. OK. I have video problems. OK. It's fun. OK. Then we opened the film vertical, the automotive vertical. And the first thing we did was actually a car demo, a commercial demo, which was a film. And at SIGGRAPH this year, in the meantime, Girish went to MPC, and they created this virtual production system, which was already used in 2 productions. So it's funny to see, like, only in like 2 years, from the first film panel to now, it came from being like demos to actual more and more serious productions. And I show Baymax Dream that you've seen yesterday, which is pretty amazing too. But I will go there. And I think it's a very important point before I start to go into the roadmap. It's like when you go into a new industry or into a new area, there's a moment where you do demos, and there are moments where you do productions. And it's kind of 2 different things. And it grew organically inside of Unity. So we had some passionate people who were pushing for features and so on. But then production started to grow, and now we see that it's not going to be about demo, but it's going to be about productions. So at Unite LA this year, that's the first time that we have a film summit, but it is also the first time that we have a film vertical at Unity, which means that we are dedicated to go there, and not just like being passionate about this, but really to go there. So what does it mean? It means that we built a vision for the next 3 years. I'm hopeful. Maybe it's going to be 5. But like the idea is to give real time to all the people who are working offline right now. Like I found out that it's 2 worlds. Like on most conferences I went to, people don't know too much about real time, never open Unity in their life. And we want to see what we can do to have people coming to real time. So what to do with this? Animated film, so double animation, triple animation, VFX and virtual production, so previs, tech-vis, and all these, to actual production, location-based entertainment, advertisement. We're talking about commercials, for example, that you need to localize or to have a bit special from one dealer to another, and you cannot just render 200 times the same commercial, but with real time, you can actually customize it. And broadcast. So how do we go there in 3 years or 5? So basically, we start in 2 areas. Like virtual production is where we are already strong because it's mostly about VR, about being interactive, being real time, having live performance going in. And double A animation, because we know through the different projects with Mr. Carton and Baymax Dream, we know that the quality of Unity is good enough to actually deliver the content that you need for this episodic series. And then building up on that, we go to triple animation. Broadcast is a kind of intermediate step where we bring video inside of Unity. And then when you have video and virtual production together, you can go to VFX, and then you get most offline users who are into the Unity pipeline. And how we go there, you see 3 axes. So one is rendering and animation here. The other one is real-time capture, like having mocap, virtual cameras, and so on going into Unity, and video. And the other one, which is common to like all the industry, is a pipeline. And it's something that, like especially the pipeline, is something that you don't go to if you are not committed to it. Like you can do without it. So we go there with 6 pillars of development. Infrastructure, which means that we know that, like talking with many companies, that Linux editor is very important. A lot of VFX and animation houses run in Linux. So Linux editor, floating licenses, and all this stuff which are not something which is about graphics or something, but it's just something which allows to produce on a large scale. Pipeline, so to get in and out of Unity, integrated into your pipeline, into your production pipeline, asset management. Performance capture, so you can plug all different systems inside of Unity, record, playback, do retakes. Graphics, which is pushing graphics to 11, so not just stopping to what consoles can do, which we will do with if we only address games, but like always trying to think everything we do to push the level to 11 anytime. Animations bring advanced animation, because we know that on animated feature and double A animation will be the critical path to productivity. And video, so that you can composite video and CG images in Unity. So that's the 6 pillars of development. So we actually have a team now. So I'm the technical product manager. Nathalie is a product marketing manager. And we will have a dedicated R&D team to film inside of Unity. And it's the first time. Like we will have people working full-time on film features. And we have already the lead. Well, she's amazing, so I'm very happy. And we will build a team around that. We will have like all the infrastructure that we have for games, we will have it for film. The business model, so it's still being defined, but globally, we really want to democratize also this. We want, like I'm super impatient to see a 4-people studio making a first feature film, because they worked on their side, they have this passion project. I think that what happened in the game industry, big thanks to Unity, also to have like these indie developers, we think it can happen also in film. So democratization is at the heart of it, and we know that if we want to scale to production, we need to do some more like specific things which goes beyond democratization. So that's like professional things like floating license, CentOS support, and so on. We know also that a lot of people, if they go into production, they will need our help to be sure that they can deliver. There is not so much R&D in film than there is in games. So we know that we have to build support teams so that we can go with you. And then all the classical ecosystem of Unity, we will also make it work for film. So asset store, bringing high-end asset store packages so that it works well for high-end rendering, VFX plugins, and so on. Plus the cloud services, so that, for example, collab is nice if you're in a small team. You just turn it on and you can start collaborating. And maybe developing film tools if it makes sense. So that's something also we didn't have. Like, for example, if you type Unity for film a year ago or 6 months ago, you had nothing, like nothing on the website. Now we have a solution page. You have some forums on Unity Connect where you can meet people and recruit people also. And we will have some dedicated areas in the asset store also, so you can find the assets which make sense for film. And we have all these plugins which live somewhere in the world. and we will have like reference them inside of the solution page. Sorry. Learning also is very important because like we have all these people who don't know real time that need to learn how to do lighting in real time, how to use our software and everything. So we started with a film sample, which was released 2 weeks ago, which is the first step into like opening a project which is already organized like a film. But there will be more around that. Events, so like this film summit. We will be also at ANSI next year. We've been in some events also, but try to commit more. And we are working on a training also so that we can deliver trainings, professional trainings, and more learning materials. So let's get into the tech stuff. So basically, you could do films forever with Unity since Unity 4, obviously, but where really we want to drive people is to go to HD render pipeline and all the tools that we're making around this. So really the first step, if you want to start now, is Unity 2018.3. Because HD render pipeline started to be released in January, but we have many things which were not working together with it, so it's just coming together right now in 2018.3. Even if it's still preview, it will just get better through the next year. So, so it's a bit of a status of where we are also. So when you start with 2018.3, you have the DCC round trip, where you can do gray boxing in Unity and then export to Maya. We support importing and exporting cameras in Unity. We have the Stingray shader, so you can have a kind of PBR shader in Maya and have it in Unity also. We support custom attributes, animations, lights, and we have a plugin for Maya, Maya LT, and 3ds Max to export back to Unity. So, and we will continue working on that DCC round trip. And when you want to connect to DCC, the second thing that comes to mind is to live link, so that when you move something in the DCC, it moves directly in Unity. So it's kind of two approach. One is like the secure one, where you just want to be sure that everything works in terms of export and import. The second one is more a workflow thing. So Unity Japan, they developed MeshSync for like a year or two now, and it's available on the GitHub. And you can live link Unity with Maya, Max, Blender, Motion Builder, and other software, I think. And you can sync polygon mesh, animations, and blend shapes. So it's probably a good workflow for the animators also to see their animation live in Unity. Alembic, so that was the first feature we kind of worked on when we took Unity from being just games to film. And now it's actually an official Alembic package. So if you go on the package manager on 2018.3, you directly find it. So it's managed by us. There is documentation. We support it actively. We support the latest Alembic. And yeah. It's something that also we also like committed to, yes, thanks. We also committed like to fix the little things which are annoying. So for example, when you were importing blend shapes in Unity, they were like rescaled between 0 and 100, which was a pain for like why. So if you had already meshes or like blend shape rigs which were made, you had to remake them just because of that. So now in 2018.3, you can bring directly the unscaled blend shapes. So have negative and positive blend shapes. And I showed, like there is this video which is not working. I can shake my mouse. And this was like a project between Weta and Graphine, which is a texture streaming plugin for Unity. And Weta just took a Planet of the Ape horse that they had from the VFX, from their VFX pipeline into Unity. And when they brought it, the first thing which broke was blend shapes. So we actually started working on it, and then when we sent the build, it was, okay, you import and it works. Here, yeah, and they render the horse with UDIMs, which is another subject. We have also an improved production workflow. So we brought a lot of things in the past year or two. So multi-scene editing, so that's what you have in the film sample. You have one scene for everything which is per shot, one scene for the set, one scene for the lighting, for the set lighting, and that's the way you share your work and you don't work on the same assets at the same time. We have nested prefabs also now that you probably know of, and nested timelines also, and we have a cache server also. When you work in real time, you need to convert your data or to compile your data. Like the textures needs to be compressed, the shaders needs to be compiled, and the geometry needs to be imported. And it could be a pain because it's not something that you're used to in a film pipeline. You usually work directly with the raw asset once it's in the pipeline. So the cache server is something where it stores the compiled versions of your assets so that when you open your project, once it has been compiled once, you can directly grab it. And it allows to work in large teams and don't lose time. We acquired ProBuilder and polybrush. So again, in this idea of creating a film from previs or blocking and going until the end of production, it's quite interesting because we have directly these things in Unity, ProBuilder, polybrush. Like there are many small improvements in the new ProBuilder, but polybrush is now officially supported, and it's a package also. But then you can like model, make some UV wrapping, do some kind of paintings, and then after that you can export with a FBX roundtrip and then rework on it, re-import on this. The terrain, so the terrain also, we reworked it. So now it's fully running on GPU. And you can create custom brushes and you have stamps. You can see on the video. Oh, it works. So you can see on the video, you can have stamps where you just take a height map in Google Map and then it becomes a stamp and you can just paint whatever mountain you know on top of your terrain. And you can create custom stamps by script. And it's also fully compatible with HDRP now. You can have like 8 layers, so you can blend between them to paint on the terrain. It's just like the first iteration on terrain. It's something like it's a work, like a long run work that we're doing on the terrain. Shader graph also, that's something which was fundamentally missing in Unity for artists, where again in the film world, most people are artists, so shader graph is growing pretty fast. Now there is support for the lead shader of HDRP, so you have access to everything like translucency, iridescence, everything. All these channels are available in the shader graph, and a lot more from HDRP will go into shader graph, like the close, for example. That will be the way you configure it. So custom textures. Who knows custom textures here? Oh, yeah, I know that it's the most hidden feature of Unity. So custom textures is great. It's a way, you know, like when you want to generate a texture, you go in Photoshop and you use filters, and then you import your textures. And it's kind of, if you want to animate it, then it's a bit complicated and so on. So custom textures is a way that you use a shader to generate a texture, which will be used into another shader, which maybe be used in another shader. So for example, in Adam episode 2, the mirror, she has like eyes with the waves floating on her skin. It's actually a custom texture which generates the texture of the waves and animates it in shader. And it's animated in real time, but you can also bake it if you want. And it's really great because when you work with a director, and it's this kind of VFX where there is a bit of artistic feedback, like I want more waves and I want more frequency, it's slower, maybe not oriented this way, you can actually change that live. And it's really powerful. You can also use it for decals. If you want to make water drops on the water, you can actually just create in a shader something which will just create a displacement map. You put it into a decal, put it on top of water, and then you have the drops going onto the water. And it's a very nice way to work in a visual, parameterized way. Timeline. So we've been working a lot on timeline. We still need to work on a lot of things. But we brought like nested timelines, which now is pretty nice for the workflow. So you have a master timeline, and then you can have a timeline per sequence, and then a timeline maybe for a smaller part of the sequence, and maybe a timeline for the crowd. And when you click on each clip, it will go down the next timeline, and then you have a breadcrumb so that you can go up. It's really nice. And when you scrub on the bottom timeline, it will scrub in the context of the larger timeline. So it's really nice. We have some bugs on it, so we are fixing a lot of bugs. We find on Baymax Dreams a lot of them also. So yeah, we're working on all that. And HDRP is a big thing. So physical-based lighting, which means that the values, before in Unity, you had the values between 0 and 1, so it doesn't mean much. And you couldn't play with the actual energy of the light, like if you have like a 12 o'clock sun, it has much more energy than the one which is in the evening, and the way it bounces changes and so on, and it's something that needs to be embedded into the lighting system. So HDRP is physical-based light. Lights are physical-based. We support point lights, spotlights, line lights, rectangle lights. There is no shadows now on rectangle and line, but you can come and see how you can do it with just mixing two of them. There is integration with the backlighting, and you have, especially what you have is like, people come to us and like, how do I get my previous shader inside of HDRP? So you can transform a standard shader very easily to HDRP. There is a button for that. But most shaders that you need are already built in. So we support things that even nobody supported, like iridescence, for example. I think almost no engine supports iridescence. But you have coating, fabric, translucency, subsurface scattering. You can choose the way, the kind of BRDF you want for subsurface scattering. You have distortions if you want to make glass. And you have all this which is built in. The same for volumetric lighting, it's now built in. Tessellation also. So tessellation, you have lit and you have lit tessellation. So you can do a Phong tessellation or have a tessellation map. And shader graph integration. And what is very nice is like every parameters is based on the volume. So you can actually interpolate depending on where you are on the world on any of these parameters. So if you want to have a more dense volume in a part in your world, you don't just change the global settings. You actually put a volume that when you go there, it's going to be more dense. You can put a 3D texture into it and animate it, and then you will have an animated fog if you want. So, yeah. And again, that's not so film related somehow. It's really like what we're doing anyway for high-end graphics. What we're doing for film is to, again, think about pushing the levels very high. So, for example, we have soft shadows, which doesn't make like sense in terms of budget for games. But you can push you can have a nice filter for the shadows, and you can push it to kind of very high quality. You can choose the resolution of your reflection probes, or planar reflection texture, so that you can have like very crisp reflections on the ground, or on the table, or on the wall. We have light linking, for example, which is more expensive to do in the game, but you can turn it on, and then you can start having layers, and say that this light only affects this character. And for example, volumetric lighting has a small checkbox to say, I want super high resolution volumetric so that you don't have too much noise. And there's a stack lit shader, which allows to stack different shaders so that you can have complicated lighting equations, like the light comes on top on the coating surface. Then in the middle, there is subsurface scattering, and in the bottom, there is another material, and you can just stack 3 shaders for doing this kind of advanced materials. And yeah. Global illumination, so we know that GI is very important. So the progressive light mapper is in the editor. In 2018.3, it's a bit complicated. You have to look at the blog post or the forum, but you can launch Unity and enable the GPU light mapper, so which means that you will bake the light maps with your GPU, so which is like real-time ray tracing almost. And pre-computed real-time GI with Enlighten, so you can still pre-bake your lighting and still move your lights around, and you will have your light bouncing around, and which is still pretty nice. Light probes, real-time reflection probes, and mixed lighting. Photography, so we also have these unique features, as you could see yesterday at the keynote. Cinemachine, which you probably know of, which is fantastic for doing like procedural cameras and advanced compositing. You have the autofocus, it's integrated in timeline, and you have new modules like camera shakes where you can, when something collides with something else, you can make your camera shake automatically. So to go even more into the procedural way of doing cameras. And we also we introduce physical camera in Unity, so you can finally, for filmmakers, have a 50mm lens or 80mm lens and so on. We still have work to do on this, so that the post-processing actually reacts in a way which is coherent with your lens, but it's already a better way to do that. It's post-processing stack, so which has ambient occlusion, bloom, color grading. It's HDR color grading, so we really do the color grading with the maximum resolution, and then we do the tone mapping after that, so you have a proper color grading. We support ACEs for the tone mapper, and you have these different things. And again, it's a volume framework, so you can create a volume, global or local, which will override only one thing, for example, in Unity. So that's it. There is what you've seen yesterday, which I'm super excited about, the VFX Graph. And so which is almost a kind of a beginning of Houdini inside of Unity, like node-based, and it generates only compute shader codes. And it's pretty nice because we have this approach about visual scripting, which is to be node and stack-based at the same time. So you don't have like tons of nodes. You have a node which contains stack of operations so that it's kind of compact. And then at each point of the stack, you can link it to a node if you have an input. And it makes it a lot more readable than just only node-based. And you can expose any parameter to the artist, so you can really create for him something he can play around with. And now we're getting to like the roadmap. So that's where we are. I think it's pretty good. I don't know what you think. It's good. I think it's pretty good. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for uploading them because the team, like teams who are working on that, are putting a lot of heart and passion into it and time. So that's where we are. Now the roadmap. So 2019.1, so the first thing we work on right now is especially the infrastructure. So having the Unity editor on Linux, so there will be Ubuntu and CentOS. Floating licenses and closed network, because we had a lot of customers that have to install the license with a USB stick and unplug the cable of internet so that Unity thinks that there is no internet, and it's not very practical when you want to produce with 50 people. So this kind of stuff, which is like, it's not super sexy, but it needs to be here. And then the pipeline, so we are working on a Python integration, which will allow you to integrate into your pipeline, and so you can create tools which looks like what your artists are used to. So you can integrate with Shotgun, for example, or things like this. We will have recorder, the frame recorder, which allows to record video or image sequences, which will be as a package also, so that you can just click on the template and have everything, Alembic recorder, and everything gets loaded as if it was part of Unity. And then rendering to 11, so we have post-processing V3, which is coming, in the same spirit of pushing rendering to 11, where there will be like physical-based depth of field that you can push really to almost like physically accurate. Fur and hair material, and blend shapes, because we had a limit to 4 bones influence per vertex, so we would do this. It's still like this one is, I still need to verify because the push is still on hold. So I hope it gets into 2019.1, and HDRP VR, so bringing all this to the VR world also. So that's it, and so Python, just quickly on Python, I have not much time, but it's based on python.net, which means that we wrap the entire C# code in Python. So you have access to any function of Unity and any function of any plugin you put in Unity from C#. So it's perfect for data preparation, or like if you take the USD plugin from Jeremy Coles and you have a wrapper in Python so that you can have USD accessible from Python. And it's only editor only, and we will have an alpha soon, so if you want to try, come to me. Post-processing V3, that's like what I was talking about, which simulates a lot of things from the cameras, like the number of blades, and anamorphic lenses, and so on. And after that, it's a plan of intent, but our first priorities is to integrate well in the production pipeline. So continue like being sure that Python works, that we have proper like shotgun integrations which are possible, or with any asset management. And the top priority is also exporting render passes, so you can save yourself if you have a few shots that needs to have compositing, or if you want to mix with video externally. So our lead developer is a specialist of color pipeline, so that will be a very interesting one, because it's a subject which is not so important for games, but actually should be, like the things that your colors are actually the same on any device you play your game or you see your movie, so it's very important. Exporting high quality videos, and in graphics we have FUR, which is, I think, the most important one. And digital humans also, and artist tools. So we continue pushing artist tools, and there will be visual scripting coming, a first version of our visual scripting, which should come by the end of next year. And video, the first step is just to enable Genlock video in Unity. And after that, actually not after that, but in parallel of this, there are things which will take longer, but we have to start working on them next year. So performance capture framework, how do you plug facial capture, mocap, virtual camera into Unity? That's the thing that we have to work on. You can already do this, but people always do the same. So maybe we can help there. Pipeline, so bringing more formats like Material-X, USD. Basically, we want to have USD or like something which works similarly like USD built inside of Unity, so that you are not opening a scene with given assets. You can actually open a production shot with variants which corresponds to what you want to see and corresponds to the platform that you want to target. Video I/O and real-time compositing, and continue to push rendering even further than what real-time can do. So with real-time ray tracing and plugging to offline path tracers. So that's it. We have not so much. Yeah, we have 5 minutes for questions. It's good. Yeah, I'm super happy to be here, and I hope like we can make a lot of things together in the next 2-3 years. Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, you talked about rendering to 11.
Yes.
Usually that means we're not getting 60 frames per second. Are we even getting 30 frames per second? And like I'm talking about like Baymax streams, for example. Are we just using frame recorder for the final rendering?
Yeah. So when I talk about rendering to 11, it's the fact that you can choose how far you want to go on any kind of scenario. So when if you're working on animation and you have 20 characters and you have fur on them, for example, that's going to be tricky to have super good fur and 20 characters. But if you're working on animation, you need to scrub in a smooth way. So you just say, I want fur to be at like 1 in quality. For example, there are things like, but then when you record, you push all the levels to the maximum, because anyway like most of the time when you record a frame, it spans into writing on disk. Like if it takes 1 second to render 1 frame in Unity, it will take maybe 1 second to actually write just the image on disk. And for example, in Baymax, we had motion blur, which is, if you want to have proper motion blur, you have to interpolate across frames. And it's very expensive, but it makes not much sense to actually verify that the motion blur is good in real time. It doesn't prevent working. So when you render, it was taking maybe a bit longer time, but the motion blur was perfect. That's what I mean, yeah. And sometimes if you work on fur, you still want to, at some point in a still image, and not recording anything, still push a level just to see that it still looks like what you expect, yeah. Question? Yes?
Do you have any support going between Unity and DCC for silver shading timeline? Is there any?
So, yeah, so we have the FBX exporter, which allows to like export a track, and you will have the final, like you just take the position of the camera, and you export it as FBX, as a camera, and then you will have it in Maya. In practice, we know that we had a few bugs in what we have now. We actually, I think we wrote an Alembic exporter for the cameras at some point. But yeah, but that's the idea, is to be able to take your camera and export it back to Unity. There is a studio right now who is doing his character outside of Unity because they have like super high-end fur. So they actually export like all the lights, all the cameras and everything to Maya, even if most of the things is done in Unity, so that they can just render the characters with the same conditions. So that's the idea of it, yeah.
Follow-up question, are you guys planning a film festival?
Sorry?
Unity Film Festival.
So that's, yeah, that's exactly what Natalie is, that was our dream. So we will try to make it come true. Like there's no announcement or anything, but we really want to, that would be the dream, that we have a film festival and you have people from all over the world submitting films and you can see what people are doing. Yeah, that would be great, yeah. Hi.
Yeah, this is actually more of a high-level question and kind of under the pretense of like the shocking demonstration last night about how the pipeline of actually developing film and animation has just like escalated to a point where you can sit down with one person and one manager that actually like has that workflow. And that, I mean, with that assumption and like that as a pretense of what I'm about to say or ask, has Unity or anyone it's associated with actually considered the sense of an upper limit as to production speed and efficiency to a point where it becomes so real time that it's, I mean, just creating it becomes actually so fast that I'm not sure if what I'm saying is making sense, but you kind of get what I'm saying, like approaching some upper limit.
So, okay, I will try to answer in a strange way. When I ask Haute Studio, for example, if like, because I had this feedback sometimes in the past years was, oh, like so much freedom is a bit scary, and then how do you produce? Like it's almost like, oh, I love that we wait for 20 hours or 1 hour the rendering, because it makes constraints that make sure that we're gonna deliver. And I think it's not like, I think it's not totally wrong or totally true. And Haute Studio, when I asked them if it was freeing or if it was dangerous, they were saying that we are professionals, and when we produce, we just don't go in the editor and try to say, oh, the guy goes this way or it goes that way. We actually thought about what we're doing, especially when you work like 30 people in parallel. You have to know what you're doing, and it's not like everybody does what they want. The most important stuff is that not everything needs to be so locked down, because you won't have the chance to change it later. That's a big change. So that you can still, you can go very fast in pre-production and then still iterate while in production. But you still need to be in a production at some time when you start to hire people, a lot of people. So you still need to validate the assets.
Yeah, it was kind of like an inspiration of like how the music industry is so saturated now, because I mean, like musicians can create music so quickly and like on their own and everything like that. And now it just kind of makes me wonder like if some similar results of saturation will actually come to the film industry, which is also being saturated. Just the mere fact that we have these guys. I mean, everyone thinks that they're a professional photographer with them and film artists. So
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's like if you look at it the other way, it will enable people. Like right now, you cannot really make an animated TV series if you're just a small team. It's almost not possible because of the infrastructure, because of the pipeline. So it will enable people to tell unique stories and to differentiate themselves from like the mass story, and also target smaller audiences, which is what happened to games, which is what happened to like first music, then games, and we have a chance to make it happen here also.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, hi.
Yes, hi.
I'm an animator by trade. Is this on? Yeah. And just want to thank you for forging ahead and pioneering this way of filmmaking. It's
Thanks.
really, really, really special. Something I've dreamed about for many years. We're a game studio though and I want to get game animation back into and storytelling back into our games. But we use the lightweight rendering pipeline.
Yes.
So a lot of the tools and roadmap items that you mentioned, will you keep lightweight rendering in mind?
So for some of them, yes, but the goal is like, if it's high-end rendering, it's HD render pipeline. If it's lightweight, is really to run on the lowest end platform, and everything which can run there, we will try to make it work there. But that's where we make the separation. Yeah. I'm sorry we...
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I have to... can I take one more? One last? No? Okay. So you can come and ask outside if you want questions. Thanks a lot.